It's for educational use only. Our group is allowing our instructor, Mr. Rodan Ardinas, to use this as an educational material. Hunters, the Cadet Alvin John de Jumao-as, the Cadet Malabago Roy B, the Cadet Daniela Sergio, the Cadet Alabado April P, and the Cadet Mendez John. Objectives. At the end of the discussions, the students will be able to first differentiate between regionalization and globalization. Next is to identify the factors leading to a greater integration of Asian region and analyze how different Asian states confront the challenges of globalizations and regionalization. So first, what is regionalism? Regionalism is a functional relation that bundles multiple nations with political, economic, and cultural inheritance, often based in geographical advantage. It is a political ideology that favors a specific region over a greater area. Regionalism emphasizes on developing the administrative power and swaying the available or some inhabitants of a region. It is usually results due to political separations, religious geography, cultural boundaries, linguistic regions, and managerial decisions. Asian regionalism focuses on the relationship between ideas and politics and examines the rapid growth of Asia's economy, financial stability, and regional economic integration. Asia's development has or had a massive positive impact on people's lives. Most Asian economies have made remarkable progress in reducing poverty. Regional integration fosters inclusive development. Government need to connect the poor to the thriving regional economy by eliminating labor market boundaries, investing in workers' capabilities, and building infrastructures to connect disadvantaged regions with economic centers. In Asia, regionalism, a development attracting growing international interest, is characterized by plurality and contest. The building of regional constitutions or institutions is not only a response to the need of practical cooperation in commercial, security, and other matters, but is also shaped by specific national interests and national rivalries, and by different ways of thinking about region. Tension between the People's Republic of China and Japan is one dangerous dynamic in Asia, and the territorial disputes of the South China Sea have brought tension to China's relations with a number of states of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN. The US-China contest is growing in importance, and Indian strategic maneuvering is also being closely watched. The term regionalism conveys the sense of intentional top-down region buildings involving intergovernmental collaboration. Regionalization, on the other hand, refers to the growing density of interaction and cooperation between neighboring countries. Regionalization may or may not be a basis for encouraging regionalism. There has been extensive economic, educational, and security interaction between Australia and numerous Asian countries, for instance, and yet Australia has been excluded from certain vital Asian regionalist initiatives. At the outset, a contest in scope needs to be identified. A contest between Asian regionalism and Asia-Pacific regionalism. From the middle decades of the 20th century Pacific or Asia-Pacific regionalism, in which the USA's presence and power tend to be prominent as influential. However, it has always had to compete with more narrowly Asians, sometimes East Asian or Southeast Asians forms regionalism. Two significant developments over the last few years are the emergence of China-centered Asian regionalism and the formulation of far-border Indo-Pacific vision, one that some see as the basis for some form of new regional association. Two types of consideration operate in the building of regions and regional communities, and also is analyzing such processes, and they often interact with one another. The first lays stress on functionalist or practical dimensions, emphasizing the advantages that can result from the cooperation and dialogue in economic, security, and other areas. This approach recognizes the range of challenges that are transnational in character, everything from epidemics to terrorist networks or irregular movement of people. The second perspective in regionalism regionalism highlights identity issues focusing on the way that region ought best to be defined. Some analysts have written a cognitive regionalism and pointed out that it is primarily concerned with sociocultural definition, and that regional institutions may not just be grounded in a sense of regional identity, but might also be producers that enforcers of the shared norms that can shape regional identity. Identity regionalism, some argue, places a higher priority on patient dialogue and respect for differences, and on the need to be wary of majority decision making and exclusionary sanctions. Many analysts of Asian region building underestimate the importance of identity issues. As a result, they fail to appreciate the obstacles which Asia-Pacific regionalism has faced and why the planning of a wider Indo-Pacific concept might be frustrated. In distinguishing functionalism from identity regionalism, it should be kept in mind that practical cooperation that can assist identity building and the consolidation of regional identity for its part has the potential to provide a stronger foundation for functional collaborations.
From the perspective of identity, regionalism, there were important steps towards building an Asian consciousness. By the beginning of the 20th century, Asia as one announced the Japanese art historian Okakura Tenshin in 1862 to 1913, and he explained that not even the snowy barriers between Chinese and Indian civilization could interrupt for one moment the broad expanse of love for the ultimate and universal, which is the common thought of every Asiatic race, and which distinguish these people from the Mediterranean and Baltic who love to dwell on the particular and search out the means not the end of life. On the other side of Asia, the Bengali religious leader Vivekananda in 1863 to 1902 was insisting that on the material plane, Europe has mainly been the basis during modern times, but on the spiritual plane, Asia has been the basis throughout the history of the world. Such thinking about Asia developed cooperat- cooperatively and often in contest with other types of social vision. Vivekananda visited Japan. Okakura spent a year in India. The Nobel Prize-winning Indian poet Rabindranath Tagore in 1861 to 1941, who traveled to Southeast Asia as well as to Japan and China, believed that it was throughout Okakura that people first come to know there was such a thing as an Asiatic mind. Initially, there was resistance in China to ideas of Asia unity, partly because of historic Chinese disdain towards many Asian peoples, but in the 1920s, the nationalists led by Sun Yat-sen began to speak of an Asian spiritual unity. One great spur towards the celebration of Asia was the Japanese victory over Russia in 1905, which was perceived by many observers as an indication that Asia is in general would soon be free of Western imperialism. Japan encouraged this sentiment, inviting Asian students to Japanese universities and forming groups such the Pan-Asiatic Association to foster inter, inter-regional relations. In 1943, at the time the Japanese prosperity spare in the Pacific War was being presented as a culmination of Asianist aspiration. One Japanese author described the Russo-Japanese War as having a week from a long night sleep. It is humiliated, disruptive, miserable, and numb Asia. In the Pacific War context, there were references also to the unseen glory of the spiritual life of Asian peoples, and it was argued that Japanese had to a certain extent absorbed the influence of both China and India, especially with the expansion of Buddhism during China's and dynasty, in power between the 7th and 10th centuries. Further was a meeting in Colombo, Ceylon, now Sri Lanka, involving Burma, now Myanmar, Ceylon, India, Indonesia, and Pakistan, which assisted in ending the First Indochina War. President Sukarno of Indonesia commented that the affairs of Asia were now the concerns of the Asian peoples themselves at the Bandung Conference, which followed in 1955, held in Bandung, Indonesia, and included African as well as Asian representatives. Sukarno spoke of mobilizing all the spiritual, all the moral, all the political strengths of the Asia on the side of peace.
So the three factors leading to greater integration is firstly, trade. In ancient times, regions of Asia had commercial relations among themselves as well as with parts of Europe and Africa. Nomadic people traded over considerable distances using barter as the medium of exchange. Ancient people were so honest and truthful as no businessman was aggrieved and defrauded. Second, similar culture. The culture of Asia is diverse, but they do share many things. This makes it an easier fit during times of negotiations. And third, common goals. The Asian region recognized the mutual benefits of a slow integration. Significance of regionalism. First, common sense of identity. Second, combines creation and implementation of institution. Third, shape a collective action within a geographical region. ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. So, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, is a regional grouping founded to promote accelerated economic growth, facilitate social progress and cultural development, pursue regional peace in the Southeast Asian region through multilateral cooperation. And ASEAN was founded on August 8, 1968. Its original members are Indonesia, Philippines, Malaysia, Thailand, and Singapore. Currently, it has 10 members, which included Vietnam, Myanmar, Brunei, Darussalam, Laos, and Timor-Leste. Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or RCEP, has been formed, which included mutual agreement with the United States, China, Japan, and South Korea.
APEC, Asian Pacific Economic Cooperation, was institutionalized with the goal of monitoring and analyzing regional markers and institutes as well as governing rules and norms for facilitating transparent and effective business transactions. It operates on the basis of non-binding commitments, open dialogue, and equal respect for views of all participating economies. APEC was founded in 1989, consisting of 21 member states. It is established to eliminate trade and investment barriers in Asia-Pacific region. Its secretariat was based in Singapore and operates as the core support mechanism for the APEC. 30%
of the world population is covered by APAC economies. It remains as a regional economic forum to leverage the growing interdependence of Asia Pacific. So, advantages of regionalism. An increase in regionalism helps manage states easily and gives a voice to smaller, less politically prominent states. It encourages regional governments to collaborate, pool resources, and approach challenges more effectively. This is particularly relevant to large global issues such as the ongoing climate crisis. Cooperation between regional states can boost economic prosperity or increase the political stability and security of a region. Can improve benefits to citizens such as freedom of regional movement or access to cheaper goods and services. Advantages of regionalism. Interconnectedness between states can blur the lines between the cultural, political, and economic identities and sovereignty of nation-state. Sovereignty describes the authority of a state to govern itself. For instance, during the EU referendum campaign in the UK, many politicians advocate for Brexit based on the argument that membership of the European Union had eroded domestic control over UK laws. Despite representing many nation-states, regional organizations can become dominated by a region's largest and richest countries. Despite belonging to regional blocs, nation-states can disagree on key political, economic, and cultural decisions. This can result in deadlocks and inaction. Characteristic of regionalism. Economic. This form of regionalism focuses on economic and financial aspects, called trade blocs. Trade blocs usually form free trade agreements, whereby states agree to reduce or even abolish taxes, tariffs, and embargoes to increase trade between states and help strengthen their economy. Security. This form of regionalism focuses on peace and security. Security regionalism can be seen in efforts to increase allies in order to avoid war and unite against a common enemy.
Regionalisms and globalization. The main aim of globalization is to increase the interconnectedness of the world. And regionalism is a way in which this can be obtained, especially as regionalism already includes a number of states. In one aspect of the blocks of regionalisms aid globalization as they encourages greater integrations between regional states. For instance, when regional states reach a political consensus on shared laws, such as EU immigration, this can encourage key aspects of globalization, such as the interstate movements of goods, people, and services. How is regionalism beneficial to the Philippines? Improves quality of life, our region's transportation, economy, housing, workforce, and social activity transcend countries' lines. Today, more than half our region's population lives and works in different countries. Regionalisms offer coordinated solutions that weaves these systems and geographic areas together. Regionalism's key takeaways. Regionalism is the idea that political power and influence is increased in specific geographic regions by the unity of nation states known as blocks. They are united by their shared goals, incentives, interests, and aims. The main reasons why there has been an increase in regionalism is as a result of the increasing interconnectedness of the world. There are three forms of regionalism: economic, political, and security. Regionalism enables globalization as it makes things easier to handle as there are fewer barriers. It is a smaller version of globalization. An increase of regionalism helps manage states easily and gives a voice to smaller, less politically prominent states. It helps the security and economy of states and make it easier to help on global problems such as climate change.